People spend years chasing happiness, imagining a future where every problem disappears at once. A better job, bigger house, more money, attention, success. But happiness rarely stays when it finally arrives. Happiness is often treated as the ultimate goal. Industries promise to make people feel better. Social media sells perfect lives. People confuse stimulation with emotional fulfillment. Psychology shows happiness is temporary. It rises from achievement, excitement, novelty, pleasure, or positive surprise. Get a promotion, buy a phone, travel, fall in love. Your brain rewards you with emotional intensity and satisfaction. The human mind has hedonic adaptation. No matter how extraordinary, the brain eventually normalizes it. What felt life-changing becomes routine. Once the emotional high fades, the search begins again. Some people are trapped in emotional chasing, moving from one achievement to another without feeling complete. They think the next milestone brings peace, but happiness was never designed to remain permanent. Contentment differs from happiness psychologically. It's quieter, steadier, less dependent on external circumstances. Contentment isn't the high of getting everything. It's the stability of needing less to feel internally secure. A content person desires growth, ambition, progress, but their emotional state is not constantly held hostage by outcomes. Contentment feels unfamiliar because modern culture rarely rewards it. It doesn't create endless consumption or competition. A truly content person becomes harder to manipulate through insecurity and fear. Insecurity is profitable. People are constantly told they are missing something important, not attractive, successful, rich, productive, or admired enough. The psychology of happiness often revolves around dopamine-driven anticipation. The brain gets excited by chasing rewards. This is why people sometimes lose interest immediately after achieving their goals. The pursuit itself created more emotional stimulation. Contentment relies less on stimulation and more on emotional regulation. It grows through acceptance, perspective, gratitude, and internal balance. Instead of constantly asking life for more, contentment asks different questions. What already matters deeply, and why is it being overlooked? There is also a major difference in how both states respond to suffering. Happiness tends to disappear quickly when life becomes painful. Contentment, however, can survive even during periods of uncertainty and hardship. It is built on emotional grounding. In fact, suppressing pain often creates even deeper psychological instability later. Contentment allows people to experience pain without losing themselves completely. A happy moment can be incredibly beautiful and deeply meaningful to experience. The problem begins when happiness becomes the only acceptable emotional state. Then every ordinary moment suddenly feels disappointing and emotionally insufficient. People start fearing silence because silence forces them to confront themselves. Many individuals are addicted to emotional intensity without realizing it. They constantly need entertainment, distraction, validation, or dramatic stimulation. Stillness feels uncomfortable because stillness exposes unresolved emotional emptiness inside. That emptiness cannot be fixed by temporary pleasure alone. Contentment requires a person to become psychologically honest with themselves. Not every dream will happen, not every relationship will last, not every effort will produce recognition or validation. Yet life can still remain meaningful, even without constant emotional rewards. One of the greatest misunderstandings about contentment is that it kills ambition. People fear becoming content because they think it will make them passive. But true contentment does not remove ambition, it removes desperation from ambition. The person still grows, but no longer from panic or self-hatred. There is a huge emotional difference between inspired effort and fearful striving. One comes from curiosity, purpose, and personal meaning. The other comes from comparison, inadequacy, and fear of being left behind. Externally, they may look similar, but psychologically, they feel different. Social comparison plays a powerful role in modern emotional dissatisfaction. The human brain naturally compares itself with people, but digital life has expanded that environment beyond anything humans evolved for. Now people compare their ordinary lives to millions of curated highlight reels. This creates an endless psychological illusion that everyone else is happier. Meanwhile, most people are privately struggling with anxiety, loneliness, and uncertainty. Many smile publicly while silently feeling emotionally disconnected. The pressure to appear happy only deepens the internal emptiness further. Contentment often grows through very ordinary experiences people usually ignore. Consistent relationships, meaningful conversations, quiet mornings, useful work, physical health, these moments rarely create dramatic emotional highs worth posting online. Yet they form the psychological foundation of long-term emotional stability. Research in psychology repeatedly shows that human connection shapes well-being deeply. People who feel emotionally supported tend to handle stress effectively, not because their lives are perfect, but because they do not suffer alone. A connected nervous system regulates emotion better than an isolated one. Another important factor is gratitude, though it is often misunderstood. Gratitude is not forced positivity or pretending painful things never happened. The brain naturally pays more attention to threats than positive experiences. This helped humans survive dangerous environments. But in modern life, that same survival mechanism creates chronic dissatisfaction. People become highly skilled at noticing what is missing from their lives. Contentment interrupts this pattern by redirecting attention toward what already exists, not in a naive way, but in a psychologically balanced way. A person stops measuring life only through absence, failure, and comparison, and slowly their nervous system begins to experience more emotional steadiness. There is also freedom hidden inside contentment that happiness cannot always provide. Happiness depends heavily on conditions remaining favorable. Contentment allows peace to exist even when circumstances become difficult or uncertain. That emotional resilience becomes incredibly valuable during painful stages of life. People often remember moments of peace more deeply than moments of excitement. A calm conversation with someone trusted can outlive years of temporary pleasure, because the nervous system craves safety just as much as stimulation. And contentment creates safety inside the emotional experience of being alive. A healthier life may involve learning when to seek happiness and when not to. There are moments for celebration, excitement, risk, passion, and emotional intensity. But there must also be space for stillness, reflection, and enoughness. Otherwise, the mind remains trapped in endless emotional hunger without rest. The people who appear most emotionally grounded are not always the happiest. Often they are simply more accepting of reality and human limitation. They stop demanding perfection from themselves, others, and life itself. And through that acceptance, they discover a quieter form of inner freedom. In the end, happiness feels like a spark that lights up certain moments. Contentment feels more like a steady flame that survives changing conditions. One gives intensity, the other gives stability and emotional endurance over time. Understanding the difference may change how a person chooses to live.